Hi, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. So I'm doing another Learn from My Mistakes video. Unfortunately, I seem to be making new and better mistakes that hopefully you can learn from and avoid having to make these same yourselves. So I just glued this box together. So it's plywood and then solid wood here, and it's joined with a couple of dominoes. And here's what I screwed up. So the domino is pretty close to the surface here because it's only 1/2 inch thick plywood. And unfortunately, as the domino went in, this end grain here isn't supported very well. If I'd done this on the side, it would have been fine. So I could have considered going the other direction, but I really want the grain going this way. It would have looked goofy otherwise. So what happened was when I glued it, these kind of blew out a little bit. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see that and share my pain. And we'll talk about how we're going to go about fixing that. So you see this here? Yeah, ouch. I actually saw it happen when I was doing the glue up, and I cried a little bit, but I got over it. So I thought about perhaps just dribbling some medium high quality cyanoacrylate or super glue down in there. I'm not really worried about this being structural. I think I got a glue joint along here. I've got the dominoes in there. I think that's solid. What I want to do is consolidate this so that I can then come back with a hand plane and just make the top look nice and smooth. The reason I decided not to go with the CA glue is while I think that will give me a pretty good bond, it's not a gap filler, and there are a little bit of gaps here, and I may actually want to come back and shave this down a little bit so I have a nice plane out here. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to use epoxy. I am going to use one of my favorite epoxy tools, and this is this metal back duct tape. I'm going to use that along the sides to create a seal, and then down inside of this joint here, probably around the edge. I'm going to make some real thin CA glue, so low viscosity. Pour it down in there so it gets down in there and makes the whole thing one solid consolidated mass. There's going to be a little bit of clear where it fills these cracks, and I'm not worried about that. I think it'll probably be close to invisible. I thought about adding a little bit of dye, a little tiny bit of red dye. I'm afraid it'll be too much and it'll soak in and change the color. So I'm just going to stick it with it as clear. And let me pull out the tape and let's get working on that. So when I put this on, you can rub it down and get a real nice seal. And one of the good things about this is you leave it a little bit proud on the top side, and it acts as a dam, keeping material from coming out. I actually didn't go quite as high as I wanted to. I'm going to add a little more. Improve that sort of dam process. That is the worst part, getting those little corners started. So I'm not going to show it on camera, I don't know how to film, but I'm going to go in underneath and then put tape along this seam as well, just so that I don't have epoxy go run down through there and make a mess down underneath. This end looks good, maybe a little piece on the end here. Just rub it nice and firm and you get a beautiful watertight, epoxy type seal. I'm using Total Boat epoxy. It's a 2-part system. These metering pumps are fantastic because you don't need to measure anything. It gives you 2 parts of the resin to 1 part of the hardener. So I've had great experience. We're using this. I've also had great experience with West System for similar applications here. The advantage of those two is that it's a relatively thin, sort of low viscosity. And I am going to make it even thinner to get it rolled down in there using a heat gun. So I want to wet the edges of each of these cracks, and then it will slowly start to seep down in there. I'm going to go ahead and fill this crack as well. Not really a crack, it just didn't get closed up when I brought the surfaces together with the clamps. I am not going to do any sort of a colored finish on here. I'm going to use a clear, and so I'm not worried about this changing the color relative to what the finished surface is going to look like. I think it'll all blend in at the end. So there, just put some on, hit it with a heat gun. And you can see it thin out and run down in there. You don't want to give it too much heat because it'll trick the exothermic curing reaction. You don't want it to cure. You want it to just soak down, completely down into the fibers and fill any openings down inside there. So I'll just do this, let it soak down in, hit it with a little bit of heat to help, lather, rinse, repeat. I'm not going to show all that on camera because it's just more of the same of what we just seen here. Okay, so this epoxy is fully cured now. It's good and hard, and I have set it up. I've got it clamped in my end vise as well as to the table, so it's nice and sturdy. And I got my tools all set up here. So this is a ski file. So I put it into this nice handle so it's much more comfortable to use. This is really good for cleaning up and removing epoxy. I've got a bench chisel, I have a block plane, and then I have a shoulder plane. So I'm not sure what's going to work best here, but probably a combination of them all. The trick is to just slow down and take your time. So particularly since I'm fixing a mistake, rushing and making a new mistake and screwing something else up is not really ideal here. So I'm just going to slowly go after it, and the idea is to just get it down perfectly flush and smooth, ready to sand and finish.